Trump puts in place a ban on immigration. Georgia is reopening soon, as is North Carolina. Will there be a PPP deal? Also, states are running out of unemployment funds. Reports of Kim Jong-un's demise seem perhaps exaggerated, and oil price the lowest in history. That and more coming up.
Governors across the country are looking forward to phase one and announcing plans for an economic resurgence. We're going to have a resurgence at a time when millions of American workers and families are struggling with the financial consequences of the virus. It's critical to continue the medical war while reopening the economy in a safe and responsible fashion. During this time, Americans must maintain strict vigilance and continue to practice careful hygiene, social distancing, and the other protective measures that we have outlined and that everybody's become very familiar with.
Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everyone. President Trump continuing to hold the line here, pushing forward for reopening where it makes sense. You know, where states feel that they are in a position to safely begin to return to business and allow for the economic activity that is necessary, as we all know, necessary to fund not just our day-to-day lives and make sure there's food on the shelves, but necessary to make sure that hospitals have staff and personnel. There's a lot at stake with the economic contraction that we're seeing, and contraction is way too gentle a word. We are in a depression. We are in a depression. Let's be very clear about that. It might be a short-lived depression. We will find out soon enough whether or not that's the case, but we are certainly in something of a depression. You look at the numbers, there's no way around that. Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina are trying to reopen right now, or in the process of reopening, I should say. There's different levels for different states. And now is when you're going to start to see unbelievable, just gross, wrong politicization of this issue from people who, look, we're at the point where there's not a small number of individuals who are being very loud about what they think should happen here, who want to see failure in states reopening so that they can be right, and Trump and the GOP and the reopen voices, including millions and millions of Democrats who don't have jobs right now either, who I'm sure care more about having a job and having a paycheck than they do about whatever they're saying on MSNBC. There are people who are rooting for this to not work. It's very clear on social media. It's very clear from the way that this is being set up by so many people in the media that their primary goal here is to create the trap for any governor of if you open and there's any more outbreaks of the virus in your state and there's any additional deaths, those deaths are on you. That blood is on your hands. Well, hold on a second. Flattening the curve was never, we were never told that flattening the curve was supposed to defeat the virus in its entirety, because it can't. And we know that we can't continue the lockdown forever. So there is no future in which there are no more cases of this virus and there are no more deaths from this virus until we get to a vaccine or herd immunity, whichever comes first. Everyone keeps assuming we'll be at a vaccine in 18 months. I'm not so confident. How is that vaccine for the various strains of the common cold coming along, right? I mean, I think there's going to be a tremendous focus on this. There is a focus on this right now, but we don't know. We don't have a SARS vaccine. Now, they would say that SARS disappeared. Anyway, it's a very complicated thing. There's also this story out that you have 30 different, according to one study linked on the Drudge Report, 30 different strains of this. There's already mutations that are occurring. With a pandemic of this scale, that wouldn't seem to be surprising. There's some mutation, although most mutation is minor. We've all been led to believe that mutation is like the X-Men, that there's dramatic changes to the genetic code. That's usually a vast majority of the time. That's not the case. But still, herd immunity would come at the long-term price of a lot of lives. And we know that. So we didn't do that. Instead, we did the flattening the curve strategy. We were told it was to prevent the overwhelming of our hospital system. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed anywhere, including here in New York, where there's a pretty substantial drop-off in new cases and also in fatalities day to day. You know, fatalities are down about 40%. New cases are down more than half. I think they're down now 60 or 70% day to day. I think the height was around 3,000, and now you've got a little over 1,000 a day, perhaps new, or 1,200 a day, something like that. So you've had a dramatic change in the trajectory here in the worst hit place. And we're told that this is all because of the flattening the curve strategy. But okay, well, then we've done it. If we extend this out, we're going to dramatically add to our economic pain and the dislocation and the problems that no one really at this point could even begin to fathom what the long-term consequences would be of shutting down our economy for months. This has never happened before. Remember, we're running an experiment that has never been done before in human history. This has never been done. A nationwide economic lockdown and just a general lockdown, societal lockdown of over 300 million people. Right now, at least a third of the world, they're estimating, is under some form of lockdown. A third of the globe, a couple billion people. We trust the people in charge of public policy to make smart decisions about all of this? Well, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, and there's going to be a lot of people out there. There are going to be a lot of people out there who are very dishonest in the way they frame this whole issue. There will be more deaths from COVID-19 no matter what we do. In fact, if the government said we don't care about the economy, everyone has to stay home on pain of imprisonment, there would still be people who would get this because we have essential workers that the government says are allowed to continue. We need people to stock the grocery stores. We have people that are driving trucks to get food to the grocery stores. We have, healthcare personnel. I mean, hospitals are pretty much the worst place you can be when it comes to the transmission of this. The highest risk is going to be in a hospital where there are COVID patients. So no matter what, there are going to be additional cases. And the moment that you reopen a society, there'll be greater risk. But now's where we start to see who is willing to have an honest and adult and serious conversation about this massively important and consequential public policy issue. And who's a hack? Who really seeks to do the bidding of the left and the Democratic Party above all else? Above saving our economy, saving our way of life, and saving lives, because all these things are intertwined. There is no lockdown until cure strategy. It does not exist. It has never existed. And so then what we're hearing from Fauci and these others right now about the need for additional testing would be helpful. Testing does not prevent the spread of the disease, nor does it cure the disease, nor does it mean that there won't be people who continue to get the disease. So it's a useful tool in mitigation, but there are limitations on it, and we're being misled. And I'm seeing some docs have finally had it. This false consensus. Remember, science is not about consensus. It's about demonstrable, provable results that can be replicated by others under the same conditions. When you mix together what's in the blue tube, what's in the yellow tube, what do you get in the last tube? Is it the same for every person who does it? Well, then that's science, right? If it's a different thing every time somebody does it, well, then we got to figure out why. It doesn't matter if somebody tells you it's the same if it's not, right? Science is supposed to be about the scientific method, experimentation, and results that can be replicated. Instead, what we have now is a false and constantly shifting consensus. This is what you must do because all the smart people say it. Every 2 weeks seems to change. And all of a sudden, the smart people, the experts, are telling us very different things. And I don't just throw this in there because it's kind of amusing to think about how wrong they were. We've now seen the lowest oil price recorded. We had, certainly when I was in college and for decades, we've had people talking about how we're running out of oil. This was a thing you would hear. Experts would say this. We're running out of oil. Now we have so much oil. We've used more oil. There was, until this happened, greater global demand for oil than there had been 10, 15, 20 years ago by a lot. And now we can't even, not only do we have a low price for oil, we're running out of places to store it. And experts, the smartest people, the people that you're supposed to listen to and not question, They told you that we were going to run out of this, and that's why we needed to switch to renewables in a crash course. ASAP, whatever it takes, all hands on deck. Got to get those windmills up and solar panels. Got to set up as many ugly wind farms as possible. Cuisinarts for migratory fowls, I like to call them, just chopping up birds day and night all the time. But yeah, otherwise we're going to run out of oil. That's where we are. Now the experts are telling us that we need to just stay at our homes until they say we can come out. No, that's not a good idea. We are going to have to take risk as a society. I was willing to say this early on. I've been saying it all along. And I received tremendous viciousness from the left for saying that for opposing the extension of the shutdown. I've always thought that this was a bad idea. I thought that 2 weeks of pause, maybe to get, I was on board for a 2-week pause to let our hospitals and systems and everything get better set up, to deal with the incoming. But the 30-day extension was more. The 30-day extension was, maybe if we just keep waiting this out, the virus will fade away. It's not going to happen. You know what controls this virus? Individual action, mitigation, and playing the numbers, engaging in intelligent behavior. But you know what else is necessary? A functioning economy and a functioning society with people who are not by the millions falling into depression and despair and alcohol abuse and suicide. Okay, that's also a part of this fight. And that this has turned so very clearly political, where I just know, Democrats are anti-reopen. Anti-reopen. That's what they've turned into. Based on what? They think that this is sustainable? We don't all work for BuzzFeed and get to sit on our couch with our 4 roommates out in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn and, bang away on a keyboard and make some cat listicles and put some trash up on the internet and get, our paycheck sent to us every month. People would say to me, you still have a job. Yeah, I still have a job. Does anybody really think that the media industry in general, especially those of us like me who, it's a very simple equation. You build audience, and the audience then responds to your sponsors, to the products that your sponsors are selling on the air. Everybody's hurting right now. Who's in that game? Everyone's going to be in rough shape. There's already been furloughs that have gone on at a bunch of the major media companies. But, if you're a blogger, you're just sitting home, you don't get paid that much anyway. And, maybe you just kind of continue doing what you're doing. So easy to sneer at people. Not quite as easy as it is perhaps for Nancy Pelosi and her artisan ice cream. By the way, the ad that I don't know if the RNC put it out but I saw Brad Parscale share it on Twitter. There's an ad out there right now of Nancy Pelosi. It is just devastating because it's so true. It shows who these Democrats really are. It just intersperses people who are saying, who have a look of shock on their faces because their livelihood, their day-to-day purpose of going to work and providing for themselves and their families and being productive members of society, that's been taken from them by the government. We did not have to do this. Don't let them tell you that. This was a decision that was made. They managed to unite, put maximum pressure on Trump, essentially set it up so that if he didn't do this, he was a mass murderer. All the insanity of the Russia collusion and Trump is Hitler and Trump is a traitor and Putin's puppet, all that same craziness. All of a sudden now they could use an actual body count as a big tool to just bludgeon the president into doing what they said he had to do here, which was to shut down the economy. Remember, not just the 2 weeks. We could have been okay. Vast majority of small businesses could handle it, and then we'd be able to get them cash. And so, the 2 weeks was manageable. 6 weeks is brutal. 10 weeks, we're not going to have the same economy after this. I don't care what they say. So this plan that some states seem to have, let's see where we are in June. No, this is the wrong path for us to be on. And the public health experts and the public health apparatus in general has dramatically underperformed and let us down. If people are going to, I'm somebody who comes out of a CIA background, and we got trashed, and I wasn't even there when it happened. We got trashed for missing 9/11, and then we got trashed for being wrong on WMD a lot. And you know what? We deserved it. Those institutions deserved all of the all of the criticism they received as a result of that. Our public health experts, stretching into the middle of February, late February, were telling us that this wasn't a big deal and it was going to be fine. Yeah, I know they could say China lied, but anybody could have just said, well, this is what China is saying, so I guess it's okay. This is the public. People are trying to make this Trump's 9/11. That's really what you see the political movement is all about right now from the left. But this is actually our public health system's 9/11. You know, was it George Bush's fault that they didn't figure out that the plot to run planes into the Pentagon, and it would have been also the Capitol building and the World Trade Center, was it really Bush's fault, or was it the FBI? A lot of FBI fault to go around, by the way, and the CIA and the other intelligence community that weren't really doing their job. And the commander-in-chief can only execute on what these institutions are able to do, are able to put forward. And here, I mean, the public health system in this country at the policy level, not again separated from the first line providers, doctors and nurses. We've got great healthcare personnel. I'm saying the policymakers and the agency, the regulatory chiefs inside the CDC, the NIH, completely failed on this issue. And now we've set this up so that the only way that you can avoid criticism is continue to listen to them when all they're telling you is just basically hide until we say it's safe to come out, America. Well, some of America is willing to go outside and take the risk. Anybody who wants to hide under their bed forever is allowed to do so. But other people want to open businesses and try to live life again. What's really the alternative? I know it's, you want grandma to die and this idiocy that's out there all the time. What is the alternative? They don't have an answer. Well, as long as it destroys Trump, that's what matters most.
I think history is going to judge him very harshly and put him in the same camp as Gerald Ford and even Herbert Hoover, who ignored what the Depression was doing to people and failed to bring the country back. That's where this president is now, and he should kiss his reelection goodbye if he thinks he's going to be able to convince the American people to want 4 more years of a guy who can't even get the basics right.
That's what this is all about, isn't it? They tell you it's about saving lives and doing what's best for the country, but Democrats, they see this all as just an opportunity. They're treating it as one. There's the mayor of New York, a complete ignoramus, a joke of a leader, a jerk, and he's already saying, yeah, Trump shouldn't win re-election because of this. What was Trump supposed to do that he didn't do? I mean, we've already had this narrative that they keep pushing it. What was Trump supposed to do he didn't do? Oh, because he was a little too positive sounding in the early days about this, that means he shouldn't get reelected? We're going to do more of a full accounting on the show today of what reality is here versus what the left says it is about Trump's response.
We're seeing these protests crop up all across the country right now, including those protests in Texas and other places where they're saying fire Anthony Fauci. Fauci is wrong. They're resisting these stay-at-home orders from governors. What's your message back to those protesters?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the message is that clearly this is something that is hurting from the standpoint of economics, from the standpoint of things that have nothing to do with the virus. But unless we get the virus under control, the real recovery economically is not going to happen. So what you do, if you jump the gun and go into a situation where you have a big spike, you're going to set yourself back. So as painful as it is to go by the careful guidelines of gradually phasing into a reopening, it's going to backfire. That's the problem.
You see, Anthony Fauci is not a public policy expert. He is an infectious disease expert. So his thoughts on the protests are not nearly as insightful or worthwhile as, say, his thoughts on the R-level infection spread rate of different pathogens. We do not expect somebody who's an infectious disease expert or doctor to have any special insight into what is necessary for the functioning of our republic. And that is what is at stake here if we continue to do this. Until we have the disease under control, how is that going to happen? Finally now people are willing to ask questions about that. Until we get the testing gets to the point where are we going to be testing everybody every 2 weeks? There are doctors in Italy who have, I've cited one on the show, but they were saying, look, okay, so we test. Guess what? By the time you figure out somebody, has this, you may already have spread it to a number of people. By the time you track them down, you could already have a new cluster. So, yeah, the testing is useful. People want to know if they have this, and they should know if they're going to be exposing others to it. But testing is not a cure. And this is where we keep hearing like we're being told certain things, and people are hearing something else. They hear, oh, we need our testing to get to a certain capacity. And then that somehow translates into, well, once testing is at a certain capacity, we won't be at risk of spikes and of deaths from this. That's not true. That's not true. Even if testing is at the level that Fauci says it has to be, there will still be people. There will still be people who get this, who die from this, and that's just the reality of our situation right now. And I'm wondering when somebody in the public health sector, we have to start talking about that. Everyone discusses, we're going to protect life. We're going to protect life. Yeah, we know. We're doing the best we can. People are also going to continue to die from this virus. That's going to be true in 2 weeks. It's going to be true in 2 months. It might be true in 2 years. So can we understand? And so now we as a society have to figure out, how do we live with this going on in the background? There is no short-term reality of a world that we can live in, literally a world. I mean, never mind just America, anywhere where there's not the possibility of and the threat of this virus, and we don't see continued infections and some people succumbing to it. We do need to have that honest conversation, it seems to me, at some point, especially when you have people that are now claiming that there's a recklessness in wanting to reopen. You know what's really reckless? Living in this fantasy that we can just keep having business shut down and we can have the cessation of economic activity, the destruction of lives, the destruction of futures. My friends, I know that we were told that we're all going to get money and everything's going to be okay. I mean, they're hopefully going to fix it soon with this PPP getting additional funding. 95% of the businesses that needed the money didn't get it because they ran out of money. Do you know what that tells us? I mean, first of all, it's a reminder that the government is not nearly as efficient, intelligent, effective as we'd all perhaps, especially in a crisis, like to believe it is. I mean, it's a reminder of government sloth and ineptitude and inability. It's a reminder of those things, but it also tells us that people whose job it is to understand what the implications of our situation really are right now, they hugely undershot how much economic devastation would be created in the first few weeks of this. Right? We had all the people together. Okay, how much money are we going to need for this? And I'm also wondering how it could be possible that they run out of the first, whatever it is, the first hundreds of billions for this plan, but only 5% of businesses actually got a loan. And now they're going to throw hundreds of billions of more at it, and that's going to cover the other 95% of small businesses that need loans. And they haven't, and here's another big problem, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I wanted to talk about this later in the show. The way that this is structured, all you have to do is say you're affected by COVID-19. Well, anybody in a business environment who can is going to say, even if I've got a capital reserve here and I could probably ride this out for 6 months, a year, which is not a lot of businesses, by the way, but I'm saying even if somebody was in that position, they say the government's going to give me a loan that I don't have to pay back. Business could turn really bad for me in a month or two, or who knows where the world's going. I'd rather have the money. That's what's obviously happened here. They couldn't figure this out, that you should have to show, they for individuals, if you made more than whatever it was 2 years ago, made more than $100,000, you didn't get any money. But for businesses, they gave, Shake Shack raised $150 million earlier in the year, and they got a $10 million government loan. and they're allowed. It's legal. I mean, I'm not look, and I understand from Shake Shack's perspective and from these other restaurants, they're saying we got staff, we got problems. Government's giving out free money. Not nearly enough free money though. All of the projections about this, nobody in the government really has any understanding of what this kind of cessation of activity does to actual underlying wealth in an economy and the real power and faith of a currency. They have no idea. This has never been done before. But let me go back to the reopening here for a second, because Georgia, and I want to tell you this, I put my money where my mouth is on things like this. I try to always live according to everything that I tell you, both in terms of principle, and I try to be honest about my shortcomings and tell you where I need improvement, whether it's on political issues that I waver on, or just personal stuff, right? Whatever it may be. I just last night signed an agreement to go give a speech in North Carolina in June. I'm going down to North Carolina. I mean, as of now, unless there's some state law that bars me or something, that could happen, right? But as of now, assuming the order is lifted and travel is, I'm going down there, because what am I going to do? I'm going to tell everybody we need to reopen America, and then I'm going to hide in my apartment in New York and not go anywhere ever and not see people and not be a part of the reopening myself. I mean, I really thought about this last night. I sat there, and I have the person who's reached out to me for his group. He's a Marine, and I've known him for over 30 years. We've been friends for over 30 years, since we're little kids. He reached out to me, and I just, we had a quick chat on the phone, and I said, look, I want to come down. I said, do you think your people, meaning, the audience that you're going to bring to this of Republicans in North Carolina, do you think they'll show? Because, that's my big concern, is that this could be. And he said, Buck, well, if we have to sit chairs apart, or, whatever we have to do to comply, we'll do. But I'm telling you this right now, my people want to get America back up on its feet and going, and they're going to show up to a GOP rally like this, and they're going to be there for a speech. That's what he told me. And I said, well, look, as long as we're, within the letter of the law on this one, if your people are showing up, I'm showing up. So I'm going to be there. I signed last night, so I'll be going to North Carolina to give a speech. And I said, look, if there's 5 people in that audience, if the social distancing means there's only 10 people that are allowed to show up, whatever it is, right? Whatever we have to do that's going to keep. If one person is going to show up, I'm going to show up. If someone's willing to sit out there in that audience, and I'm hoping it's going to be more like 300 or 400 people, but if anyone's willing to show up, then I'll be there. And in June we'll know more about how things are going. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to prepare for a future in which we start to get back to life as we've known it. And yeah, there are going to be some risks in that. There are risks to all of us. There's risk walking out your front door every day. We're seeing this now. Lives are saved. Lives have been saved by the lockdown, not just whether you want to talk about the COVID-19 numbers, but from car accidents, from accidents of all kinds, way down. And if somebody does, and I'm sure they will at some point when things calm down, they'll do an analysis of this, and we'll see that there are a lot of lives saved by telling people they have to stay in their homes. Yeah, but everyone has had to stay in their homes. We're giving up weeks and weeks of our lives. The only thing the only commodity that you can't get back, and this is a thing I've heard on Wall Street, the only thing that you can't get back that's tangible to you, you can't get more of. You can't get more of is actually the phrase. Time. We are all living under various phases of house arrest right now, and the data doesn't support that this is even a good thing in the short term, never mind the long term. All the data that I'm seeing is that with personal mitigation measures, limitations on large crowds, don't use mass transportation, but as long as you take the precautions that one can take without locking down entirely and not allowing for economic activity, you'd get very close to, if not exactly where we are in terms of the safety of the people in any society that was doing it. There's a very real, not just argument, I mean, there's a lot of data to support that, but no one cares, right? Lockdown, that's what we're doing. We're doing a lockdown because we've been told to do so. I mean, people on the left, they've really been conditioned to just whatever the state says. You know, if the state says do 10 jumping jacks, as long as it's not if it's a Republican telling them to do it, then they might have a question. But if it's just the state in general, happy to do it. Whatever the government tells them. It's stunning, but this is where we are. And, here is an epidemiologist who's going after Governor Kemp here, who's saying he wants to start reopening his state soon, in a matter of days, for business and for some activities. I think gyms will be open too. Man, wouldn't that be nice to be able to go to the gym again? I mean, I'm not like some big gym guy or something, but it's just nice to have that change of pace and deal with your frustrations and everything that way, and get in better shape. Play clip 20.
I've got Georgia on my mind tonight. Every epidemiologist in the country has been trained in Georgia at CDC or goes there. It's the mecca for epidemiologists. And I wonder what Governor Kemp is thinking. Georgia has twice as many cases per capita as California. It's in the top 10 states for deaths. The number of deaths has doubled in the last week in Georgia. It's in the top 10 states in the country. I don't understand. It doesn't meet CDC's guidelines. He should just go down the block and go to 1600 Clifton Road, where CDC is, and talk to the epidemiologists. And I don't think that they'd be very happy about this.
Well, the epidemiologists then have to answer the question for me, what happens when millions of people realize that the government can't actually put the economy back together again, isn't allowing them to pay their bills, took their jobs away from them, and is now telling them they can't go outside and engage in basic human activities? How long do you think that holds together, epidemiologists? For a disease, let's remember that at a maximum right now, based on all the numbers we're seeing, the Santa Clara study out of Germany, out of France, out of the homeless study out of Boston, the pregnant women with COVID-19 here in New York at the hospitals. I mean, at a maximum, this is going to end up killing roughly 1% of the people who get it. But really, the number is going to be much more like 0.5 or 0.3 or 0.1. Now, I'm not saying that's not a horrific death toll, but you also can't crush all of society for that. That is fundamentally what people will not tell you right now, but that is where we are. That is what the public policy community, they're acting on this without being willing to say it. Otherwise, well then, yeah, I guess if it saves just one life, then we shut down until there's a vaccine, and we will not have a country left. So these epidemiologists, they can all sit around and talk about, Georgia, how could they do what they're doing? How long do they think this is? Do we want to wait a year? We think that's going to work out well? There's not going to be a lot of research done by epidemiologists if there are people out in the streets rioting. And if you think that can't happen, just look at where we're heading economically right now and the strain we're putting on our entire financial system.
These people are being egged on by right-wing media and people like Alex Jones and Rush Limbaugh. And why are you bringing guns to a rally? You want to call yourself protesters, leave your guns home. Those are terrorists who bring guns to things, to rallies. I don't trust that at all. And don't listen to these people.
I don't trust them at all. Why are they bringing guns to a rally? I mean, my doorman and my butler and my maid, they don't carry guns.
I've got to say, how many acts of violence have there been from protesters who want to end the lockdowns? Oh, that's right. The answer is 0. Remember when we were worried about insurrection because there were a bunch of Second Amendment protesters who were gathering together in the state capital of Virginia, and a lot of them had legally carried and legally owned firearms on them? 0 acts of violence. Do they ever even notice? Do they ever even care that they propagate all this hysteria in the media? And, well, really, as we know, gun ownership has just become it's just an issue of ideological separation now for so many people. If you own guns, if you believe in the Second Amendment, you're a certain kind of person, and it's the kind of person that the left doesn't like. But on the issue of the lockdowns, we are seeing such a divide in our society. And I'm somebody who, at least for now, I mean, I am, well, I'm lucky and I'm unlucky in the circumstances. I mean, look, anyone who has their health right now, let's start with that. You're lucky, okay? If you're healthy, you don't have this, you don't have an immediate family member with this, you're lucky health-wise. All right. But then there's the economics of it. In that sense, I'm also lucky. I still have a job. It is absolutely crushing. It is a gut punch to think about all the people who listen to this show, all the people across the country who do not have a job, who do not have money in the bank. And I know what it's like to not have any money in the bank. It is incredibly anxiety producing. I've had that as an adult. I think I had like, one point, a couple of $100 in the bank. I mean, it was just not good. But I didn't have a family to feed. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. And that was because of choices that I had made. It wasn't because the government came along and said, you're not allowed to have a job anymore. The rage that's building up is real and it is justified.